Hello students, today we are going to discuss a topic called vector algebra. This topic is you will be studying this topic in chapter named motion in a plane. So you know that in our daily life we encounter a lot of vector quantities. Those have magnitude and dimension are generally called vectors. So we have seen many vector quantities. Even in the chapter named motion along a straight line, we have come across a large number of vector quantities: velocity, acceleration, then displacement. These were all vector quantities. So let us discuss in detail about the vectors, their properties, how two vectors can be added or subtracted, then what is meant by resolution of a vector, and also towards the end we will discuss the product of two vectors. So let us begin. So we know that any quantity that has got a magnitude and a direction is a vector. But to be called as a vector, it must satisfy one more very important condition. So any quantity that has got a magnitude and a direction, generally we call quantities having both a magnitude and direction as vectors. So the first thing is the quantity must have a magnitude. It must have a magnitude. Number two, it must have a direction, and above all, even though these two are there, there is a third condition which is the most important one. That is, these vectors should satisfy, or these quantities should satisfy the parallelogram law. Parallelogram law for vector addition. Parallelogram law for addition of two vectors. Only if the third condition is met after satisfying the first two, we will call that quantity a vector. So if you want to call somebody a vector, he must have a magnitude, a direction, and also satisfy the law, parallelogram law for vector addition. You know that vectors have a different rule for addition and subtraction because they have got directions. So if all the three conditions that I have written here are met by a quantity, that is certainly and surely a vector quantity. Okay, now how to represent a vector? You know that a vector can be represented by a line segment with an arrowhead. So the length of this line will give you an idea of the magnitude of the physical quantity, of course within proper scales. So the length of this line segment is an indication of the magnitude of the physical quantity, and the direction in which the arrow mark is pointing is the direction in which the physical quantity itself is pointing. Suppose I say that this is a force of 5 Newton I have a force of 5 Newton acting towards the north. This is clearly representing a force which is acting towards the north. If on the other hand I say that I have walked 3 kilometers towards the east, this is clearly 3 kilometers towards the east. This line, whose length is 3 and of course within the limits, within the specific units, and then the arrow mark is pointing in the direction which the physical quantity is pointing, which here is the displacement, the direction which I have walked. So that is how you represent a vector. Now another point is, when you represent a vector like this, with a line segment and arrow mark or arrowhead, this point, this end of the vector, that is this point, tip of the vector, this is called the tip of the vector. This is the tip of the vector, and this is of course the tail of the vector. So every vector has got a tip and a tail. So when you talk about vectors, they have tail and a tip. Now what do we mean by tip and tail? So this arrowhead is the one which is called the tip, and the other end of the line segment is the tail. Now you know that there are different type of vectors also. So one of them is actually the there are very different types of vectors. That is concurrent vectors, collinear vector, coplanar vectors. These are all vectors. But there are two very important vectors which are, number one, it is called a unit vector. This is called a unit vector, and the second one is called a null vector or zero vector. This is the second one, which is a null vector or zero vector. Now let us briefly discuss what are these two. Unit vector, as the name suggests, unit vector is one whose magnitude is unity, and it has a direction which is arbitrary. So let us look at a vector. Now you know that you can represent a vector with a bold letter with an arrow pointing above, arrow placed above the letter, or you can simply use a bold letter to represent a vector quantity. Any one of these is the correct representation of a vector. Suppose you have a vector A and you want to get the unit vector corresponding to this vector A. It means that you must get another vector whose magnitude is unity and whose direction is the same as the direction of this vector A. That is called the unit vector of A. So how to get the unit vector of A? All you have to do is to divide this vector A with its own magnitude. Then what you get will be the unit vector of A, represented by a cap. This is called A cap. A cap means unit vector of A. So how to get the unit vector of a vector? Divide that vector with its modulus or magnitude. Then you will get a new vector whose magnitude is unity, but the direction is the same as that of the original vector. So those are two. Now of course we have to discuss the second one, which is the null vector. Null vector is, again, as the name suggests, a vector with zero magnitude. So for a null vector, the magnitude is zero and the direction is ambiguous. Zero magnitude and ambiguous direction. So many students will ask, what is the need of having such a vector whose magnitude is zero? It has no direction, specified direction. So what is the point in defining such a vector? I will show you with an example. Suppose we have two vectors A and B, and their sum gives us a third vector, which is C. So simple addition. Vector plus vector should give you vector. Scalar plus scalar will give you scalar. So only similar physical quantities can be added. You have studied this in a chapter called measurements. Now suppose vector B is equal to minus vector A. Then what you get? Vector A, in place of B we have to write minus A equal to 0. So now we have a situation where subtraction of one vector from another one gives a scalar. You know that vectors, when you subtract a vector from one vector, you will get only a third vector. You will never end up with the scalar, because vector plus vector is a vector. Similarly, vector minus vector is also a vector. It should not be a scalar, but this 0 is very clearly a scalar, and we will call this a null vector. It's a vector with a zero magnitude and an ambiguous direction. So that is how this picture of this idea of null vector came into the picture. Okay, so now let us proceed to discuss the addition of vectors, how the two vectors can be added. And for that we have already discussed the type of vectors, so I will write them here. They are then collinear, then coplanar, then concurrent, then parallel vectors, parallel, and anti-parallel. So you know all these things. Collinear vectors are the vectors which lie in the same line. If you have two or more vectors lying in the same line, they are called collinear vectors. Coplanar vectors lying in the same plane. So suppose I have two vectors, two of them lie on this table, they are called coplanar. Then concurrent, if you have two or more vectors meeting at a point, they are called concurrent vectors. Parallel vectors, you know the angle between them is 0, and anti-parallel vectors, the angle between them is of course 180 degree. So these are some of the different types of vectors. Of course, we have already discussed the two most important ones, which are unit vector and null vector. Unit vector and null vector. So these are the different type of vectors which we normally use in our +1 course. So now let us move to the discussion of how the vectors can be. Let us now start the discussion of how two vectors can be added. So for that we will first use the triangle law. So what is a triangle law? So in triangle law we will construct a triangle to get the resultant of two vectors. Resultant means sum of the two vectors. So let us see how that can be done. I have a vector here which I call by the name A, and another vector B which is here. So let us make it a little straight. So this one, let us make it a little straight. This one is slightly inclined. So we will make it a little straight. This is our vector B. Now I want to add A to B, A plus B. So how to do this? I told you that vector addition is slightly different, not slightly, it's entirely different from the scalar addition. Scalar addition is very simple. You just add the numbers and get the result. Vectors are not like that because they have direction. So how to add these two vectors? So what I told you at the beginning is we will construct a triangle to get the resultant. So we will take one vector, say B, and place it over A, or we will take vector A and place it over B. Either way it can be done. So take the vector A and place it over B in such a way that tail of B, or rather the tip of A, coincides with the tail of B. I repeat, you take the vector A and place it over B in such a way that tail of A coincides with the tip of B. But this is easier said than done, because when you are handling a vector, you must be extremely careful. Why? Because vectors have both magnitude and direction. So when you place a vector over the other one, there should not be any change in neither its magnitude nor in its direction. Neither the magnitude nor the direction of that vector should be changed. So magnitude of course will not change, but direction, there is every possibility that if you handle the vector carelessly, the direction can be changed. When the direction changes, the vector quantity itself is changing, or the physical quantity which is represented by that vector itself is changing. So how to overcome this difficulty? It's very simple. All you have to do is to make a parallel displacement. So what is parallel displacement? Take this vector A and in such a way that you displace it, then take it in such a way that it is placed over B. How? The tail of A is coincident with the tip of B. So displace A parallel to itself until its tail and the tip of B coincide. So this is how that is done. Now A has been displaced parallel to itself and its tail is now touching the tip of B. Now join the tail of A and the tip of B. So this is your resultant. So this is your resultant. This is your A, which is displaced parallel, and this is your resultant A plus B. Understood? So displace a vector parallel to itself until its tail and the tip of the other vector coincide. Now join the tail of the first vector and the tip of the second vector. That will give you the resultant in magnitude and direction. Now the calculation of the magnitude of the resultant would have been simple had the two vectors A and B been perpendicular to each other. See, if A and B were perpendicular to each other, suppose this was your B and this your A, this is your A and this is your B, then the resultant would have been obtained without much difficulty, because you can apply Pythagoras theorem. By using the Pythagoras theorem, you can calculate the diagonal, or the hypotenuse, and you will be able to get A square plus B square equal to, let us call this as R. So R square equal to A square plus B square. The addition is very simple. But in the other cases, in any other case where the angle is not 90 degree, it is a little difficult to find the magnitude of A plus B. And for that, we will use a more convenient or more general approach called parallelogram law of vector addition. So our next topic for discussion is parallelogram law of vector addition. So let us see what is meant by parallelogram law of vector addition. So in parallelogram law, what we do is we will construct a parallelogram with the given vectors. So we have already two vectors A and B. Let us draw them here. So this is your A, this is our A, and this is our B, this is our B. Now what I am going to do is I will complete the parallelogram with A and B as the sides. So draw A parallel to itself, so that there is no change either in its magnitude or in its direction. And now we will draw the vector B. So this is your B. Now join the common tail and the common tip. So this is your resultant R. Of course, this angle we call it by the name alpha. That is the angle between the two vectors at the beginning, and let the resultant make an angle theta with the vector A. Now we have to find the magnitude of the resultant. For that we will just extend this vector and drop a perpendicular from here. So that this is O, this is A, this is of course B, and we call this as C and this as D. This angle has to be alpha. Then now let us write down everything that is given here. That is OA, that is equal to A, then OB, that is equal to B, then OC, that is equal to R. Now let us look at the triangle, right angle triangle ADC. Let us look at right angle triangle ADC. Now in that right angle triangle ADC, we will find sin alpha. So what is sin alpha? Sin alpha is DC by AC. That is our sin alpha. And therefore DC equal to AC sin alpha, and AC is of course B. Because OB is B, then this AC is nothing but the parallel displacement of OB. So AC is also B. So DC equal to B sin alpha. Now from the same triangle we will find cos alpha. What is cos alpha? Cos alpha is AD by, similarly AD by AC. So AD equal to AC cos alpha, which is AC is, as we know, that is B. So this is B cos alpha. So we have got both AD and DC. Now what we do is we will take the right angle triangle ODC and apply Pythagoras theorem. So right angle triangle ODC, and going to apply the Pythagoras theorem, which is OD square plus this is DC square equal to OC square. DC square equal to OC square. Now let us expand this, and now we will write DC as OA plus AD. Sorry, OD as OA plus AD. This OD can be written as OA plus AD. So this is OA plus AD, the whole square, plus DC square, that is equal to OC square. Now let us expand this. We will expand this as OA square plus AD square plus 2OA into AD plus DC square, that is our OC square. So OA square plus AD square plus 2OA into AD plus DC square, that is equal to OC square. Now let us substitute for them one by one. What is DC? DC is B sin alpha, and we have AD as B cos alpha. So DC and AD we will substitute. So DC and AD. So we will write, we know that OA is already, OA is A and OB is B. So OA is A. So this is A square plus our AD is B cos alpha the whole square, B AD square, that is B cos alpha the whole square, plus 2 into OA into AD. So this is equal to 2 into A into, what is AD? B cos alpha. This is B cos alpha plus what is DC? DC is B sin alpha. So DC square is B sin alpha the whole square, B sin alpha the whole square. This is our OC square, and OC is R. So this is R square. Now let us simplify further. R square equal to A square plus, this is B square cos square alpha plus 2ab cos alpha plus b square sin square alpha. Now let us club these cos square terms together. So this is a square plus b square into sin square alpha plus cos square alpha plus cos square alpha plus 2ab cos alpha. This is equal to a square plus, all of you know sin square alpha plus cos square alpha is 1. So this is a square plus b square plus 2ab cos alpha. That is our r square. So what is your resultant r? R equal to root of a square plus b square plus 2ab cos alpha. So that is our resultant, magnitude of our resultant, r equal to root of a square plus b square plus 2ab cos alpha. Now you know that the resultant is a vector. We have to find the direction which the resultant is acting. So next thing is we must find the direction which it is acting, and for that we will again take the right angle triangle ADC. We will take the right angle triangle ODC, because what we want is theta. So tan theta, from the right angle triangle ODC we will find tan theta. Now what is tan theta? Tan theta is opposite side by adjacent side, CD divided by OD. So tan theta is CD by OD. And what is OD? OD, as we all know, OA plus AD. So this is equal to CD by OA plus AD. Now let us substitute for all of them. CD, we have already found out a substitution for CD, B sin alpha. So this is B sin alpha divided by, what is OA? OA is A. And what is AD? AD is B cos alpha. So we put it here as B cos alpha. So that is our tan theta, or theta is tan inverse B sin alpha by A plus B cos alpha. So that is the angle at which the resultant is oriented. So we have obtained both the magnitude and the direction. So let us write them, both the magnitude and direction, the next page. So we will write both of them, the magnitude and the direction. So we have the resultant as r equal to root of a square plus b square plus 2ab cos alpha, a square plus b square plus 2ab cos alpha, and the resultant is tan theta equal to b sin alpha divided by tan theta equal to b sin alpha divided by a plus b cos alpha. So that is our direction of the resultant. So we have both the magnitude and the direction of the resultant. Resultant is root of a, magnitude is root of a square plus b square plus 2ab cos alpha, and the angle made by the resultant, tangent of the angle, tan of the angle made by the resultant, tan theta equal to b sin alpha by a plus b cos alpha. Now let us look at some special cases. Suppose alpha equal to 0, then what is the resultant? Then the resultant will be cos 0 is 1, root of a square plus b square plus 2ab, which is root of a plus b the whole square, and that will be equal to a plus b. So this is the maximum value of the resultant, R max, that is equal to a plus b. And you put alpha equal to 180 degree. Then what is cos 180? As all of us know, cos 180 is minus 1. So this will be root of a square plus b square minus 2ab, and it will be root of a minus b the whole square, which is a minus b. So then the resultant will be a minus b. So this is R minimum equal to, how much we get? How much did we get? A minus b. So these two are very important results, R minimum and R maximum. Why they are important? Because the resultant of two vectors can have a maximum magnitude of a plus b and a minimum magnitude of a minus b. So any value for the resultant above a plus b or below a minus b cannot be a possible value of the magnitude of the resultant. So any value for a plus b, any value which is lying above a plus b or below b a minus b cannot be a possible value of the magnitude of the resultant. So that is very important. So that is how we get the resultant of how we get the magnitude of the resultant as well as the direction. So these two are very important. These points are very important. So you keep in mind this formula for getting the magnitude of the resultant as well as its direction. Okay. Now let us do a small problem. Two equal non-parallel forces are acting at a point. If the square of their resultant is 3 times the product of the forces, what is the angle between them? Two equal non-parallel forces are acting at a point. So let us assume that the forces are F and F. Why F and F? Because it is mentioned in the problem that they are equal and non-parallel forces. So force means we use the symbol F, and their magnitudes are equal according to the problem. So both of them are represented as F each. Now the square of their resultant is 3 times the product of the forces. We assume that the angle between the forces is alpha. So let us write the resultant R equal to root of F square plus F square plus 2F square cos alpha. That is our formula for the resultant. And what is this resultant according to the problem? The resultant is, according to the problem, 3 times the product of the forces, which is 3F square. According to the problem, the resultant is, it has a magnitude which is equal to 3 times the product of the forces. So let us substitute that here. R equal to 3F square equal to root of F square plus F square is 2F square. 2F square plus 2F square cos alpha. Let us, so this is the square resultant has a, what is the resultant? Resultant is the square of the resultant, not the resultant. So this is actually the square of the resultant. So there is no need of any root, square root sign here, because according to the problem, this is the, this term is not, this square root, the symbol of the square root should not be there, because according to the problem, the square of the resultant is 3 times the product of the forces. So now let us simplify this. When you simplify this, we will get 2F square, this is actually F square, 2F square plus 2F square cos alpha equal to 3F square. So let us simplify further. So this will give you 2F square cos alpha is equal to F square. From here you can write cos alpha as 1 by 2 or alpha equal to 60 degree, which is pi by 3. So that is the solution to this problem. So we have obtained the angle between the vectors. Okay, so let us proceed. So let us do another problem. The resultant of two forces of magnitudes P and Q acting at a point at an angle of 60 degrees, root 7Q, then P by Q is. So we will write down the formula for the magnitude of the resultant, which is R equal to root of P square plus Q square plus 2PQ cos alpha. Now let us substitute. Our resultant is root 7Q, and then this is equal to root of P square plus Q square plus 2PQ, and alpha is 60 degree, so cos 60. So let us simplify further. Root 7Q equal to root of P square plus Q square plus cos 60 is 1 by 2, so this becomes PQ. Now let us square both sides. So this is 7Q square that is equal to P square plus Q square plus PQ. So we will write it as P square minus 6Q square plus PQ equal to 0. So this is our equation. We have to solve this. So in order to solve this, we will divide both sides of the equation with the Q square. So this will be P square by Q square minus 6 plus P by Q equal to 0, which can be written as P by Q the whole square plus P by Q minus 6 equal to 0. So now you know that this is a very simple. By factorization you can get the answer. So this will be P by Q plus 3 into P by Q minus 2 equal to 0. So P by Q cannot be equal to minus 3. Therefore P by Q should be equal to 2. That is our answer. So our answer is P by Q equal to 2. Okay. Okay, now let us go to the next section, which is nothing but the resolution of a vector. Now what is meant by the resolution of vector? Resolution of vector means splitting a vector along the directions, along the known directions. Suppose we have a vector which is lying along any direction in the xy plane. So let us draw the y-axis. So this is our y-axis and this is our x-axis. Now we have a vector here. Let us call the vector as A. This is our vector. Now resolving this vector means finding its projections onto the x and the y-axis. Imagine that this x-axis is a screen and you have a torch. You place the torch here, somewhere here, and light it. Switch it on. You can see the shadow of this line on the x-axis. And that shadow is nothing but its x projection. Similarly, if you place the torch somewhere here and switch it on, you will get the projection of the same vector onto the y-axis, which we assume to be another screen. So these shadows are nothing but the projections of the vector onto the x and the y-axis. And they are also called the components. And this process of splitting the vector is called the resolution of the vector. Now let this angle be theta. Then this is its x component, which is ax, and this is the y component, which is ay. So let us find ax. So let us find cos theta from this triangle. So cos theta is ax by a. Of course, both ax and a represent the modulus of those two vectors. So ax equal to a cos theta. And similarly, from the same triangle we can find the sine value of sine theta. And sine theta equal to ay by a. So if this is ay, parallel displacement, this is also ay. So then ay equal to a sine theta. So this ax, a cos theta and a sine theta, this a cos theta and a sine theta are the components of the vector A. They are the projections of the vector A onto the x and the y axis. But basically, if you look at this expressions, you can see that both of them are representing the modulus. Ax is a scalar because a is the modulus of vector A. Cos theta is a scalar. Scalar into scalar is a scalar. So both a cos theta and a sin theta are scalars. Actually, what we want is their components of the vector A. So components of vector should be vectors. Component of a vector cannot be a scalar. So in order to give them a vectorial nature, both ax and ay should be given vectorial nature because they are the components of a vector. So ax equal to what we have obtained is a cos theta, which is a scalar. Now how to convert it to a vector, how to give it a direction? Multiply it with a unit vector lying in the direction of ax or along the x-axis. And what is our unit vector lying along the x-axis? We have already discussed the idea of unit vector, concept of unit vector. And you see, you have a unit vector lying along the x-axis, which is given by I cap. Similarly, along the y-axis, you have a unit vector which is given by j cap. See, multiplying a cos theta with I cap and a sin theta with j cap, that process does not change their magnitudes. Nothing has changed regard as far as the magnitudes of a cos theta and a sin theta are concerned, but we have given them a direction. So our vector A is now a cos theta into I cap plus a sin theta into j cap. So these two, or you can also write it as A equal to ax plus ay, or rather ax into I cap. So this is ax is the modulus of the x component. So ax into I cap we can write it as ax into I cap, or we will write it here, ax into I cap plus ay into j cap, where ax is a cos theta and ay is a sin theta. Now you see, these two components are mutually perpendicular. Look at the diagram. Both ax and ay are mutually perpendicular. So they are called rectangular components. So these two components are also known by the name rectangular components. So rectangular components means the components are mutually perpendicular. So the two components ax and ay are mutually perpendicular. You see, when you take a vector in space, it can have infinite number of components. When you place it on a paper or the surface of the board, you are reducing it to a two-dimensional vector. So there can be only two mutually perpendicular directions. So you will have only two mutually perpendicular components for the vector which is on a plane. But in space, you can have infinite number of components. Because there are infinite directions to which the vector can be split. Don't think that the components are the x and the y projections. Components are the projections of the vector along known directions. So there can be infinite number of planes. So there can be infinite number of projections. So if a vector is lying in space, it can have infinite number of components. So that is about the components of a vector. Okay.